Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome to Asian Filmist. My name is Ray and I love movies. And the movie we'll be talking about today is a 2017 live-action adaptation of the manga Blade of the Immortal. Originally, the manga was written by Samura Hiroaki, and this movie is directed by none other than Miike Takashi. And it stars a whole bunch of big names, and leading the way is a member of former boy band SMAP, Kimura Takuya. And also starring is Sugisaki Hana, Fukishi Sota, Toda Erika, and the list goes on and on. As expected of director Miike Takashi, as his movies usually feature a whole bunch of names. And so the basic story of Blade of the Immortal, it follows a warrior by the name of Manji, who, as you can tell by the title, is made into immortal by a mysterious woman. And she bestows this gift or curse upon Manji after he slaughters hundreds of men to avenge the death of his little sister. And so 50 years later, we meet Rin, who enlists the help of Manji as a bodyguard of sorts in order to exact revenge upon this group of swordsmen who have murdered her family. And so what we have here is a tale of revenge. And you know, since we have Miike Takashi behind the camera, we know there's gonna be a big body count. And upon checking it out in the theater, I knew that because it was Miike in the director's chair, it was going to be a hit or a miss. And just judging with the way Miike's films have been as of late, it was most likely going to be a miss, but I couldn't help but indulge myself anyway. So let's dive into the positives I had about Blade of the Immortal. First of all, I really liked the performances by the two leads, Kimura Takuya and Sugisaki Hana. I don't know, for me, Kimura Takuya is kind of a unique actor in the sense that he only has one facial expression for most of the time, but he has a lot of fans that dig that facial expression, you know? But I thought for the most part, that facial expression worked in this movie. I mean, Manji, the way the story made him out to be, he's this kind of dick, he's this total asshole, and Kimura really made that come to life. And Sugisaki Hana, who plays Rin, she did a really good job too. Relatively speaking, compared to Kimura Takuya, she is a relatively new face to the scene. She's been in a bunch of movies already, a bunch of movies and TV dramas, and you know, all her performances for the most part were pretty good. But I liked it when the two performed together. The chemistry was really good. It felt like a big brother little sister relationship for most of the time. And it's kind of fitting because Manji kind of accepts Rin's proposal to be her bodyguard because he sees a lot of his little sister in Rin. And it doesn't hurt that Rin and Manji's little sister Machi were played by the same actress. Other things I thought that were really cool were the costume and set designs. You can really tell that these characters were pulled straight from the comic, as they were obviously different than your typical samurai movie characters. Like, I don't know, even though Miike Takashi's movies are hits or misses, mostly misses if you ask me, the one thing he does do well with care is making sure the characters look exactly how they do in the source material. If not exactly how they look like in the source material, then it's usually pretty damn close. And I really enjoyed the music. It really did well in setting the tone and the atmosphere that the story was trying to set. And above all else, I really liked the action. And what I enjoyed about the action is that it felt really raw. It didn't feel choreographed like a lot of recent action movies. It's just Manji using his sword and cutting through hundreds of bodies. And you know, overall, it was really satisfying. And what really went well with this really raw action was Miike's over-the-top violence. Like, another thing you can really count on with Miike's movies, other than the accurate character design from the original source, is that, you know, if the story calls for violence, Miike will deliver and probably overdo it in the process. Admittedly, I like Miike's over-the-top violence, and I thought it worked pretty well for Blade of the Immortal. And the violence really worked well with Manji's character. I mean, he has hella weapons just up his sleeves. He just throws his fist down and then random weapons come out. And I'm pretty sure that's how it was in the original manga. But yeah, tons of weapons, tons of violence, tons of bodies. This movie has all of that. And now let's talk about the minuses I had about this movie. First of all, there is a ton of characters and a ton of story arcs that were actually condensed into a few minutes apiece. And I've only read one of the original comics, so my knowledge of the story and the characters really don't go far beyond that first book, and it's been about, you know, a little over 10 years since I read it, so the details are kind of fuzzy, but I'm pretty sure the movie had already cut out a lot of story arcs and a lot of characters from the original comic, but the movie story still felt really saturated and really overcrowded with all the characters that are trying to introduce to you. And even though the movie was pretty long at about 2 hours and 30 minutes, it still felt like there wasn't enough time to really build up all these characters. Like, each of the characters felt really cool. Like, they had their own unique look, their own unique fighting style, their own unique weapon. But then, for the most part, they're in the story for not more than 10 minutes. And because of that, we get introduced to a lot of characters who are underdeveloped or who are introduced, but then later you kind of forget about because they don't really bring them back. And then something happens to the characters, but then you don't really care because you didn't spend that much time with them on screen. Although as many characters as there were, it wasn't as bad as Terraformers, which Miike released last year. Like, I really wanted to know more about the character played by Ichikawa Ebizo. He's a pretty famous kabuki actor here in Japan, and he has a part as one of those characters that get introduced only for Manji to kill, and it was a really cool character, but you know, he's only on screen for like 10 minutes and then that was it. Another thing I want to nitpick on is that there were a lot of sloppy inconsistencies with camera shots. Like 1 second, in one frame, it'll show a character with their sword up here, and the next frame, the sword will be over here. And you know, those kinds of things, it happened more than a few times, and it was pretty jarring when you actually noticed them. And one last thing, you know how I said as a plus, Miike's over-the-top violence worked really well for this movie? However, one minus about that is that it became pretty monotone after a while. You know, that's not too bad of a minus because overall the violence was satisfying in this tale of revenge. So yeah, the bottom line I have to say about Blade of the Immortal, it's a clusterfuck, but it's not as bad as Terraformers if you've seen that. That movie was really disappointing. It's good for Miike style over-the-top violence with manga style action, but not really all that great for a fleshed out story. It probably would have worked better as a TV series, if anything. And for you guys wondering, this is not a return to form for Miike. You know, it pretty much feels like he's a director for hire when it comes to making comic or anime adaptations. And it feels like he really just pumps these movies out just to get paid. You know, admittedly, these movies look really good. There's a lot of flash, but there's very little substance. And you know, it's disappointing because Miike, he's the guy who brought Audition to us. So I've gotta say, the wait continues until Miike can come back to us in original form. So needless to say, this kind of makes me worried for when Miike releases JoJo's Bizarre Adventure later on this year. But you know, all in all, recommend this film for fans of Kimura Takuya. There's a lot of you guys out there. And overall for fans of bloody samurai movies with a high body count. Because like I said, the violence was satisfying. A lot more than the story was. But those are my thoughts on Blade of the Immortal. What did you guys think? Whatever your thoughts are, leave a comment below. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to Asian Filmist for more reviews and discussions on Asian films. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you subscribe to our email newsletter, you can receive a free copy of our ebook, The 108 Asian Films for New Fans to Watch. Once again, my name is Ray. You can find me on Twitter at RayMaru555. And that's about it, guys. Alright everyone, I'm about to watch some more movies. I'll be back soon, yeah? Promise.